Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about salaries and asking for a raise. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, Frederick, how should I ask for a pay increase? And the short answer is, you should as much as possible gather evidence that you have impact on the company, and you should focus your communication on stating that your interest is to be valuable to the company. Let me explain. So, when asking for a raise, or when you're trying to increase your monetary compensation for the work that you do, you should consider something that is very important, and that is that your pay, pay attention now, your pay is not based on how long you have been doing something. Your pay is based on what value you bring from the work that you do. Just let that sink in for a moment. It doesn't matter how entitled you feel, how many years you've spent, etc., etc. This is completely irrelevant when you're asking for a salary increase. What that is going to be dependent on is your impact. How much of a difference does it make that you are in that company? You can think of it similar to how expensive a mechanical part is going to be in, say, a car. Now, if you're building a car, the parts that are going to be the cheapest are going to be the parts that you can just pull out and then just put right back in, like a wheel, for example. It's not very hard, it's very detachable, you can switch it out at almost any time because it doesn't have much impact on the overall functionality of the vehicle. But if you are talking about the most intricate electrical wiring or parts of the engine or things like that, it's an extremely expensive process for you to pull out such a piece out of that working system and then replace it. That is exactly what is going to dictate how much money you make within IT. It is the thing that is most important. So when you're asking for a raise, you need to ask yourself, since the last time I had a pay increase, have I increased my impact on my company? Am I today more valuable, and can I prove that I am more valuable today than I was last time? If you cannot look yourself in the mirror and say yes, don't ask for a raise. It doesn't matter if you've been working forever, because it is a very weak argument to say that, oh, I've been working here for a year now, I should see a pay increase. Some managers or some bosses, they will see that that is a viable argument, yes, and they will give you maybe you will get a token pay increase. But if you want to see the real money, you need to be able to go to your boss and say, I feel that we should talk about progressing my career within the company. And then they will ask you, okay, so you see that you feel that you should have a larger compensation, you should have a higher salary, or you should have more responsibility. What proof do you have? Like, some of them will just, if you've been doing this correctly, if you have clearly shown that you are valuable to the company that you're working in, and that you have impact, they won't most likely not ask you why. They will be aware of it. You still need to have proof. That's important, because unfortunately your manager is most likely not working side by side with you every single day, and that means that they are not aware of all the amazing stuff that you are doing for the company. So you need to make sure that your coworkers can vouch for you if needed, or that you have some references that you can pull in and say that, oh, that project, well, I did that project and it went this way, etc., etc. You need proof, because they are most likely going to ask for some type of reason why they should increase your salary. So once you have that in the bag, you know that you have an increased impact. Now comes the most important part, and you should ideally ask about this sort of thing very early on. I would say that you should even ask about this in the interview stage, if at all possible. You need to determine how this company promotes people. What that basically means is that you should, as early as possible, ask a question very similar to something like, I'm just curious, how do we develop our developers here? How do you progress through your career at this company? That's a very harmless and very natural question. How do I progress my career within this company? What do you value at this company? These are very good constructive questions, because your manager or your future employer is going to tell you how they do that, and because they literally have to have this sort of progression ladder or some type of idea of how to progress people. And when they tell you how, you will have a chance now to hear what their value system is, what is important to this company. And then you simply state to them, yeah, the reason why I'm asking, why I feel that this is important to me, is because I want to know how I can have a bigger impact on the work that we do here at this company. I want to be able to contribute as much as possible in the areas that are important to us at this company. That's what you're pushing. That's the communication that you're after. You're trying to communicate that the goal for you is to become more crucial or more impactful to the company. Never ever go up to your boss and say something like, how can I make more money? I feel like I'm underpaid. Don't be a whiny little brat who thinks that the world owes him or her something. Nobody cares about if you want more money. You're never going to get a free lunch. Everything comes at a cost, and the best way for you to communicate to your manager that you are interested in progressing your career or actually making, because that's the thing, guys, you make more money if you progress your career. Just asking for more pay for the same job and you're doing the same thing as you were yesterday at the same level, it's a very hard sell. It's much easier for you to come in and tell them that, well, I feel like I've been doing really well. Could we have an evaluation of my performance and then maybe create a roadmap for things that you might want to see improve in my performance before we can talk about upgrading my salary, or rather, even better than saying upgrading your salary, you can say something along the lines, if I wanted to have more responsibility. That's also a very good way of communicating that your focus is not necessarily on the money, but rather on responsibility, so that you have a greater impact. So what I want you to take away from this is that if you're going to ask for a raise, number one for you is to always remember that there are things that are important to a company, and it is not how long you have been working there. That's not irrelevant at all for most companies. What is relevant is your impact on that company. So if you can clearly say to yourself that since the last time I saw a pay raise, I have done important work for this company that I can reference, I can prove that I have been doing this, I have a greater impact today than I had last time, then that is the perfect time for you to start the conversation with your manager. Now, it is important for you to know how to actually start that conversation. That's why as early as possible, when you're working in a specific company, you want to know how this actually works. Every company has some strategy for how to promote their staff, because the focus for you should not be to communicate that you want more money. That's coming your way anyway. The focus for you, the best thing you can communicate, is that you want more responsibility, you want to be more valuable, you want to be more involved, you want to have a greater impact. These are things that your boss is going to value extremely highly, and not just in that company. It is something that's going to earn you both respect, influence, and career progression for your entire time here in IT. So that is what you should focus on. I hope this makes sense to you. Have a great day.